Hey, it's Flora, your Chief Happiness Officer at Club Jam and the host of the human side of AI. But today's Monday, which means our AI hosts are taking the mic for a deep dive, and this week's story is a big one. You know we talk about Claude constantly inside Club Jam. Well, on June 9th, Anthropic launched Claude Fable 5, their most powerful model ever. And 3 days later, the U.S. government stepped in and shut the whole thing down. Export controls, national security, the whole works. It stayed dark for almost 3 weeks before coming back online July 1st. And the story of what happened in between says so much about where AI is headed. Today, our AI hosts break down what Fable 5 can actually do, why its guardrails might matter more than its intelligence, and what this means for those of us building businesses with these tools. A quick heads up, if you have Claude Pro or Max Plan, Fable 5 is included in your subscription through tomorrow only, so go on and play after you listen. Let's get into it.
Picture this. You are standing on a dealership lot, right? You're ready to buy a new family car.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You want something safe, something reliable, perfect for everyday errands.
Right, just a normal car.
Exactly. But then the dealer pops the hood and you realize the engine inside this friendly, practical vehicle is the exact identical piece of hardware powering a highly restricted, classified military drone.
Oh, wow.
It feels like a paradox, right? How can the safest, most public-friendly consumer tool ever created be driven by a machine so potent it doubles as a government-only cyber weapon?
I mean, it sounds like a hypothetical thought experiment, but that is the actual reality we're sitting with right now.
Yeah.
We are looking at a fundamental shift in how consumer technology is categorized and, honestly, how it's controlled.
And that paradox, that is our mission today. So welcome to the deep dive. We're looking at a pretty massive stack of sources surrounding the June 9, 2026 launch of Anthropic's Claude Fable 5.
A huge day for the industry.
Massive. We are going to explore its capabilities, the really intricate, clever mechanisms Anthropic used to cage it, and of course, the dramatic government intervention that shut the entire system down just 3 days after it launched.
Which is so critical to unpack. Because this isn't just another routine software update.
Not at all.
No. What we are really looking at here is the incredibly fragile line between rapid, world-changing innovation and global security. I mean, we've crossed a threshold where commercial software and national security infrastructure are suddenly using the exact same underlying architecture.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can get into the drama of the launch and the shutdown, we have to understand what exactly they launched. And maybe more importantly, what they kept hidden. So the sources make it clear that Fable 5 is the first Mythos class model.
Which is a completely new tier.
Right. A completely new tier of capabilities sitting above their previous flagship, Claude Opus.
But the core secret here is that Fable 5, the public version, and Mythos 5, the highly restricted version, are the exact same underlying model. Yeah, they are identical at the architectural level.
Literally the same.
Literally. The reasoning engine, the neural network pathways, the raw computational intelligence. It is a one-to-one match. There's no physical or structural difference between the two systems.
So the only difference is the safeguards.
Exactly.
Fable 5 is the public face. It's equipped with the most aggressive safety systems Anthropic has ever built. But Mythos 5 is the ungoverned version.
It has those restrictions totally stripped away,
Yep.
especially in sensitive areas like cybersecurity.
And that one is strictly reserved for a highly vetted group of organizations, right? Like critical infrastructure providers and cyber defenders working directly with the U.S. government through Project Glasswing.
Yeah, the distinction is purely behavioral. It's entirely dictated by a safety layer placed on top of the raw intelligence. So if we use your car analogy,
Let's go back to that.
Anthropic basically built a record-breaking hypercar. For the public Fable 5 version, they welded a digital governor to the engine. You literally cannot push it past the speed limit.
It just won't let you.
Right. But Mythos 5 is that same car with the governor ripped off, handed exclusively to professional drivers on a closed, secure track to run defensive simulations.
Okay, but I have to question the logic of that approach.
How so?
Well, is it actually a smart strategy to build an engine this inherently dangerous and powerful if you then have to turn around and artificially choke it just to make it street legal? Like, why not just build a smaller, safer engine for the public from the start?
What's fascinating here is that the calculus of the AI industry has completely flipped.
What do you mean?
Capability is no longer the primary product differentiator. At the frontier level, raw intelligence is almost a given now.
Sure, everyone's models are smart.
Right. So the product that Anthropic is actually selling to the public with Fable 5 isn't just intelligence, it's safety.
The guardrails themselves are the product.
Exactly. By building this massive engine and proving they can successfully rein it in, they're demonstrating they have the engineering infrastructure to control superintelligence. They aren't just selling software anymore, they're selling trust to enterprise clients, to regulators, everyone.
That is a massive shift in perspective. The control mechanism is the actual selling point.
It really is.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of this engine. Because even with that governor welded on, Fable 5 is operating on an entirely different level. Like, the benchmarks show it's scoring 10% higher than Claude Opus 4.8 on complex reasoning tasks.
And keep in mind, Opus 4.8 was the state-of-the-art model released just weeks prior to this.
Just weeks. But, you know, benchmark numbers don't tell the real story here. The real story is how this thing actually works, because this is no longer a chatbot where you type a prompt and wait for a paragraph in response.
No, not at all.
Fable 5 operates autonomously for days at a time. It plans its own project stages, it spins up subagents to handle specific tasks, and it actually checks its own work.
It's totally wild.
Look at the Stripe example from early testing. The sources say Stripe used Fable 5 to migrate a 50 million line code base.
50 million lines.
50 million. A human engineering team would have taken over 2 months to do that. And Fable 5 completed the entire migration in 1 day.
One single day. And to understand how it does that, we have to look at what they call iterative reasoning loops.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, it doesn't just read 50 million lines and spit out a new version all at once. It sets a plan. Then it deploys the subagent.
Like a mini version of itself.
Basically, yeah. A mini temporary version of itself to translate just a specific chunk of code. That subagent spins up a virtual environment, runs a test on its new code, and then it reads the error log when it inevitably fails.
Because it's going to fail on the first try.
Right. But it doesn't stop. It patches its own bug, verifies it works, and then reports back to the main system. And it does this thousands of times a minute, completely unsupervised.
That is insane. And it's applying that exact same autonomous loop to the physical sciences, too.
Oh, yeah, the biology stuff.
Yeah. Using that ungoverned Mythos 5 version, Anthropic's protein design experts sped up parts of the drug discovery process by 10 times.
10 times faster.
And it handled every single step autonomously. It wasn't just guessing, it was actively calculating molecular binding affinities in a simulated 3D space.
Just doing the math.
Doing the math, choosing binding sites, running complex design tools, and crucially, recovering from its own failures without a human scientist holding its hand.
That's the iterative loop again.
Exactly. And the result, 9 out of the 14 protein targets it worked on produce strong drug candidates.
Which perfectly illustrates why Mythos 5 has to be locked down so tightly.
How so?
Well, the ability to autonomously simulate and design novel proteins is a world-saving capability when you apply it to pharmaceuticals.
All right.
But the underlying mechanics of designing a life-saving drug and designing a synthetic, highly lethal pathogen, they are functionally identical. The model doesn't inherently know the difference between healing and harming. It just knows molecular geometry.
That is terrifying. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. The music example.
Oh, this blew my mind.
Anthropic demonstrated Fable 5 coding a fluid simulation, right? Where the motion of the digital fluid was perfectly synced to a classical EDM remix. But the system produced the music itself using code, despite having zero audio input capabilities.
It literally has no ears.
It has no ears. So how does a system that can't hear write a perfectly structured EDM track?
It's all text and math based.
Exactly. It turns out audio is just math. Sound waves can be represented as mathematical arrays numbers dictating frequency, amplitude, rhythm.
Right.
So Fable 5 understands the mathematical structure of music so deeply that it can map those frequencies to arrays and literally type out an EDM track, number by number. It hears by reading the math.
It is synthesizing cross-domain knowledge. It understands fluid dynamics, it understands the mathematics of audio frequencies, and it merges them autonomously through raw code.
But if it's doing, if it's running autonomously for days to migrate code bases, or in third-party tests where Hex used it to score 90% on complex analytical tasks, or Base 44 using it to build full applications from a single prompt, if it's doing all of this while we sleep, at what point are we not using a software tool anymore? Have we essentially just hired a digital employee?
That's the big question.
And if so, how do you even manage a system that operates continuously in the background?
For you, the listener, whether you're running a small business or managing a corporate team, this requires a complete paradigm shift.
Okay.
You are moving from micromanaging a tool to macro-managing a digital worker.
Yeah.
You are no longer supervising individual keystrokes or, crafting the perfect prompt.
Right. You're not typing, write me an email.
No, you are defining the end goal, handing off the project, and stepping into the role of an executive editor. You're just reviewing the final results days later.
Which is incredibly efficient, obviously, but it also introduces a massive vulnerability. Like, if I hire a human employee and they make a mistake, maybe they format a spreadsheet wrong.
Sure.
If an autonomous system this capable goes off the rails, it could rewrite a company's entire server architecture with a fatal flaw before anyone even wakes up. Engineering a theoretically perfect safety net in a lab is one thing. Surviving the chaos of the public internet is another.
Anthropic was acutely aware of that. They knew that without robust safeguards, Fable 5's proficiency in cyber, biology, and chemistry was a major liability. So they deployed a strategy called defense in depth.
Yeah, the sources outline how they essentially built an internal army for this.
They did.
They pulled staff from across the company to literally double the number of safety researchers working on Fable 5 before the launch. They ran over 1,000 hours of bug bounties.
1,000 hours.
And they brought in external red teams, professional hackers whose sole job is to find jailbreaks. And for anyone unfamiliar, a jailbreak is essentially a psychological trick, or a really complex prompt designed to confuse the AI into ignoring its safety training.
Exactly.
And despite all that testing, they found 0 universal jailbreaks. 0.
But the most sophisticated aspect of their defense, in depth, isn't just a rigid wall that blocks bad requests. It's how the system handles the gray areas, the prompts that aren't overtly malicious but sit right on the edge.
A clever fallback.
Yes, the fallback.
Because normally if you ask an AI a question that trips its safety wires, it gives you that generic flat refusal. It essentially shuts down the conversation.
I cannot fulfill this request.
Right, exactly. But Fable 5 doesn't do that. If you ask it a high-risk question, it seamlessly routes your prompt to Claude Opus 4.8.
The previous model.
Right, which acts as the next safest rung down the ladder. Opus 4.8 then delivers a safe, helpful answer, and you only pay the cheaper Opus prices for that specific routed portion.
And the transition is instant. The user interface doesn't change. There's no loading screen. The system just quietly downgrades the underlying engine for that specific query to ensure safety.
That's so smart.
And the data shows that 95% of user sessions stay entirely on Fable 5 without ever triggering that fallback.
So what does this all mean? It's basically the ultimate customer service pivot.
How so?
Well, instead of a bouncer aggressively kicking you out of the club for asking a dangerous question, they politely hand you off to a very helpful librarian, Opus 4.8.
A librarian who points you to a safe book.
Exactly. You don't even realize you got bounced.
And that 95% statistic is really the metric for success here. Good safety design is nimble. It gives you the illusion of total, unencumbered capability while quietly preventing catastrophic misuse in the background.
And just for context on the pricing, because this invisible safety net operates within massive data parameters, Fable 5 costs $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens. And for the uninitiated, tokens are basically chunks of words. But the real standout here is the 1 million token context window.
The working memory.
Right. A context window is the AI's working memory for a single conversation. 1 million tokens means this system has a working memory so large it can hold the text of 5 thick novels at once.
It's massive.
It can remember the intricate details of a massive code base from 3 days ago while finishing the final lines of code today.
It is a premium product for sure. It's double the price of Opus 4.8, but it's heavily subsidized compared to the enterprise preview.
Yeah.
However, despite all of that invisible, foolproof safety design reality, always test the lab's assumptions.
Boy, did it ever, because just 3 days after launch, on June 12, the entire system ground to a halt. The U.S. government stepped in and applied strict export controls to both Fable 5 and Mythos 5, specifically requiring Anthropic to restrict access for foreign nationals.
Which, for a globally distributed cloud platform, is an immediate logistical nightmare. You literally cannot retroactively verify the passport of every API user in real time.
Right. And an API is just the software bridge that lets external developers plug Anthropic's brain into their own apps. Thousands of apps rely on that bridge.
Thousands.
Because Anthropic couldn't verify nationalities instantly, they had to drop the nuclear option. They suspended access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for everyone globally. The whole system went completely dark.
And the catalyst for this wasn't an adversarial nation-state attack. It was routine testing by researchers at Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon researchers were probing Fable 5, and they found a way to bypass those supposedly foolproof safeguards. They prompted it to identify software vulnerabilities and managed to get it to produce code demonstrating a live exploit.
They reported it, and the government immediately slammed on the brakes.
But we have to look at the mechanics of why this bypass worked, because it highlights a massive gray area in AI alignment.
Exactly. Defensive cybersecurity requires identifying vulnerabilities so you could patch them.
Right.
But that is exactly the same mechanical action as a hacker finding vulnerabilities so they can exploit them. The AI essentially got confused by the intent.
And Anthropic argued exactly that. They proved this bypass didn't expose any unique super intelligent capabilities. Older models, and even competitor models like GPT 5.5, could identify those exact same vulnerabilities if prompted similarly.
It wasn't a Mythos-level threat.
No. The Fable 5 system just thought it was performing routine defensive cybersecurity work, something its ultra-strict safeguards are usually supposed to block just out of an abundance of caution, but it slipped through the net.
Right. So to fix it, Anthropic had to train an improved classifier. Think of a classifier as a digital sorting hat that sits between you and the AI. It analyzes your prompt to flag malicious intent before the AI even reads it.
Okay, I like that analogy.
They refined that sorting hat, worked with regulators to review the evidence, and the government lifted the export controls. Access for the public was finally restored on July 1st.
But access was restored with a massive string attached.
A huge one.
Fable 5 now requires mandatory 30-day data retention on all traffic, period. Even for massive enterprise clients who previously had ironclad zero retention agreements.
Which is a huge deal for enterprises.
Massive. Anthropic explicitly states this data is not used for training future models. It is strictly stored to detect novel attacks and reduce false positives for security purposes.
It is essentially a forensic tool. If an exploit slips through, security teams need a record of the prompts that generated it so they can patch the vulnerability.
I understand the theory, but I have to play devil's advocate here. It's like the government putting a mandatory black box flight recorder in every civilian car. They promise they won't look at the data unless you crash, but you still have to drive knowing everything is being recorded.
Sure, I hear that.
A mandatory 30-day data retention policy, applied to everyone, sets a terrifying industry precedent. Are we saying that accessing frontier AI now means kissing corporate privacy goodbye? If I run a Fortune 500 company, I can't feed my proprietary code into Fable 5 if I know it's sitting on a server for a month.
I hear the privacy concern. I really do. But we have to weigh it against the capability. When a system can autonomously generate a zero-day exploit or design a synthetic compound, a 30-day retention policy isn't just corporate overreach. It is a necessary mechanism for national security.
But the chilling effect.
If someone uses the platform to generate an attack, investigators have to trace the origin. They need that trail.
But the chilling effect on enterprise adoption is going to be massive. Businesses rely on those zero retention agreements to protect trade secrets.
This raises an important question, and honestly, it perfectly highlights the macro tension of this entire era. We are caught in the crossfire.
Totally.
On one hand, regulators are now treating frontier AI with the exact same seriousness as national security threats. A 2-week government-mandated pause on a commercial software launch is unprecedented.
Unheard of.
On the other hand, everyday users and businesses are paying the price. They are forced to trade their data privacy for access to the autonomous tools they need just to stay competitive.
And that tension is playing out against one of the wildest financial backdrops imaginable.
Oh, the timing is crazy.
If we zoom out from the immediate launch drama, the corporate paradox Anthropic is sitting on is staggering. The sources note that this Fable 5 launch occurred just days after Anthropic confidentially filed for an IPO.
And their financial metrics are scaling almost as fast as their models.
Seriously. Their revenue run rate skyrocketed from $10 billion last year to $47 billion.
Incredible.
They just closed a funding round, giving them a $965 billion valuation. They have surpassed OpenAI, who is sitting at $852 billion.
Wow.
They are knocking on the door of $1 trillion valuation entirely based on the sheer power of this model. But right in the middle of this massive launch, right amid this nearly $1 trillion valuation, Anthropic publicly called for all major AI labs to establish a coordinated brake pedal on frontier development.
Yeah.
They are warning that these systems might soon be able to self-improve without human intervention at all.
The juxtaposition is jarring, to say the least.
It is wild. Let me get this straight. They launch the most capable autonomous AI ever built, file for an IPO worth nearly $1 trillion, and in the exact same breath, they're yelling at the rest of the industry, everyone hit the brakes.
It sounds contradictory, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the economic incentives, specifically the concept of regulatory capture.
Okay, explain that.
Anthropic is currently at the top of the mountain. They have the most advanced model and the strongest safety architecture. By calling for a coordinated brake pedal and heavy regulation right now, they are genuinely trying to prevent an uncontrolled superintelligence explosion, yes,
right,
but economically. They're also pulling up the ladder behind them. If governments mandate that all future AI requires the massive, expensive safety infrastructure that Anthropic just spent years building, smaller competitors literally won't be able to catch up.
Because they can't afford it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The brake pedal doubles as a strategic moat for their IPO.
That makes perfect sense. They are driving the hypercar at top speed, but asking for a speed limit only after they've crossed the finish line.
Exactly.
It is a brilliant and highly controversial maneuver. And for you, listening right now, this isn't just theoretical drama happening in a boardroom. Fable 5 is available to you today.
Yeah.
You can access it on the Claude API, Claude.ai, Claude Code, AWS, Google Cloud. It's integrated everywhere. And a crucial logistical note from our sources. If you are on a Pro, Max, Team, or Select Enterprise plan, Fable 5 is included for up to 50% of your weekly usage limits.
That's a great deal.
But that inclusion only lasts through tomorrow, July 7. After tomorrow, it shifts entirely over to a usage credit system. So if you want to test drive this hypercar, the window is closing quickly.
And as you interact with it, I would leave you with this final thought to mull over. We have seen that the exact same underlying architecture can be a world-saving autonomous drug designer on one hand, and a system so fundamentally potent that a single bypass triggers federal export controls on the other. So the question is, are we rapidly approaching a near future where cutting-edge AI isn't regulated like consumer software at all?
Right.
Are we entering an era where frontier models are treated globally like weapons-grade uranium, where the raw material is so dual use that you might literally need an international treaty just to turn the servers on?
That is definitely a reality that seems closer than ever. Thank you so much for exploring the mechanics of this with us. It's been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive. To everyone listening, thank you for joining us. Keep asking the big questions, and we will catch you on the next one.